murdered with 46 witnesses, but no one saw a thing. They say that small towns have no secrets, but Skidmore, Missouri, since 1981, has had a big secret. The secret is who killed Ken McElroy. This is their story. Hello, I'm Sean, and if you are new here, then welcome to my channel. And if you're a returner, then welcome back. It's great to see you again. I am so pleased and humbled that you're here. Twice a week, I try to research true crime that I find interesting to tell you about. I want to make sure that the victims are remembered, and there's a lot of victims to be remembered. If you're not subscribed, please do so. It's free. You can do it right over there. I appreciate each and every one of you. I enjoy conversing with you and responding to your comments. So please feel free to leave comments. If you want to support me kindly, I do have Patreon, and the link is in the description down here someplace. If you have any other ideas for future crimes, please feel free to leave me a message. I have actually done a lot of videos from people's suggestions. Because sometimes people want to hear a different person's point of view. So, that being said, now on with today's true crime. And yes, at the beginning I said this is their story, and that's what I meant. They encompass both Ken McElroy and the town of Skidmore. So I will get to that and explain it more. Ken McElroy was born June 1st, 1934, and resided in Skidmore, Missouri. He was the 15th out of 16 kids. His parents were poor tenant farmers, and they moved around quite often in the area. At the age of 15, he dropped out of school. He was only in the 8th grade. I wonder if he's put back a little bit, because I think I was 15 when I was like in the 11th grade. Okay. Or 10th grade, sorry, 10th grade. This was in 1949, and he started to get a reputation as a cattle rustler, small-time thief, and a womanizer. For the next 3 decades, he racked up over a dozen felonies, and he never really got in trouble for any of them. Usually after witnesses refused to testify against him. Obviously, intimidation works for a bully. Some of the crimes that he did was theft, which was his main thing. Stealing of gas, grain, alcohol, antiques, and livestock. Other things that he was accused of was statutory R word. Not going to say the word, but R word. Statutory is right before statutory R word. Child assault with a 3-letter word up before the assault. Starts with an S. And arson, animal cruelty, and just regular assault on people. But none of the charges ever stuck. He was such a great guy. He was loved by everyone. Okay, sorry. I promised myself I wouldn't be sarcastic, but he was a bully. He was a complete jerk to the people in this town. And here I am claiming that he's a victim. Stick around. 21 times he was indicted, but he escaped these convictions each and every time. He would intimidate his witnesses. He would actually follow them around and park outside of their homes. He would watch them and make sure that they knew he was watching them. So they got scared and refused to testify against him. Now, I did say that he was a womanizer, and he fathered more than 10 children. In a documentary that I watched, they said that it's closer to 20 children that he had. I don't know. But his last wife was Trina McLeod. She was born in 1957. She was only 12 years old when he met her. He repeatedly R-worded her, and once she became pregnant at 14, he decided to marry her to avoid getting in trouble. He was 35, by the way. Her parents opposed to this relationship and, said no marriage. Well, to teach them a lesson and to tell them basically he's going to do what he wants to do, he burnt down their house and he shot their dog. They reluctantly agreed to the marriage. So Trina dropped out of school and she moved in with him and his second wife, Alice. He had to divorce Alice to marry Trina, but he was trying to avoid those statutory charges because once he married her, since she was the only witness to what he had done to her, she could not testify against him. Spousal privilege, which works in some cases and is just so dumb in other cases. After she gave birth to a child, 16 days later, her and Alice fled to Trina's parents' house to hide. She was trying to run away because of his abusive ways. Well, he went there and retrieved her. He then burnt down their house and shot their new dog. Yeah, I mean, this guy was definitely a piece of work. Yeah. On July 27th, 1976, Romaine Henry was shot twice with a shotgun. Romaine says that McElroy did it. He was charged with assault with intent to kill. McElroy denies that he was at this scene. The case was drug on and on and on without a court date. Romaine said that he had spotted McElroy outside of his home at least 100 times, trying to intimidate him to drop the charges. But he stood fast and said, no, I'm not going to drop the charges. When they finally did have a trial, two raccoon hunters, and I don't know why they said raccoon hunters. They must have just hunted raccoon. I don't know. But two raccoon hunters testified that they were with McElroy the day that Romaine was shot, and he was acquitted. They do in this documentary, and I'll mention at the end, in this documentary, they actually interview Romaine, and he explains it more. In 1980, a child of McElroy's had gotten into an argument with a clerk, Evelyn Summy, at a local grocery store. The child was trying to steal some candy, and she caught him and scolded the child for it. The grocery store was owned by Ernest Bo Bowenkamp and his wife Lois. Because of this, McElroy started to stalk the Bowenkamp family. It ended up escalating to him actually threatening Bo in the back of the store with a shotgun. During the confrontation, McElroy actually shot Bo in the neck with the shotgun. Luckily for Bo, he survived, and McElroy was arrested. He was then charged with attempted murder. So the trial happened, and he was actually convicted at the trial for assault, but he was freed on bail pending an appeal. So he was convicted, but they let him go out on bail because he was going to appeal the case. And I've never heard of that. I've always thought that you have to appeal from prison or jail. Um, but apparently they let him out on a bond to appeal his conviction. So after he was freed on his bond, he went to the local D&G tavern with a rifle. He made graphic statements about what he was going to do to Bo. Patrons inside the bar started to talk that they needed to find a way they could legally do something to prevent him from harming anyone else. McElroy's appeal hearing kept being delayed by his attorney for one reason or another, so he was out for a long time. The Nottoway County Sheriff Dan Estes met with townspeople on July 10th, 1981 in the Legion Hall. They went there to discuss how to protect themselves and what to do about McElroy. While they're in the meeting, McElroy and Trina went to the D&G Tavern and drank some beer. Word got back to the people at the meeting that he was over there across the street. Sheriff Estes instructed the townspeople not to get into a confrontation with McElroy. They told him what they needed to do was to form a neighborhood watch so they could all be watching, so there would be people to be able to testify against him in future crimes that he might commit. They ended the meeting, and Estes immediately got into his police cruiser and drove out of town. So there would be no police officer in the town. The meeting townspeople decided to go for a drink, so they all walked into the D&G. They filled this tavern up. McElroy finished his beer, thought nothing of all the people being around him. He bought himself a six-pack of beer and left. He and Trina got into his pickup truck and he started it up. While they were still sitting in the truck, many of the townspeople left the bar and entered the street. And they kind of crowded around the truck. And before anyone knew it, multiple shots started ringing out. The rear window of McElroy's truck was shattered. His driver's window was shattered. He slumped over the steering wheel. His foot pressed down onto the gas pedal, and the engine started to rev. Some people pulled Trina out of the truck, and eventually the engine died, and everything went silent. In the documentary, people said that his foot just sat there, and the truck kept revving until the engine blew and smoke was everywhere, and that just seems weird, but okay. Miraculously, no one saw a thing. When authorities asked, the citizens told them that they heard gunfire and they ducked to try to save themselves, so they never saw who had a gun. Trina pointed her finger at Del Clement, saying that he was the one who killed McElroy, but no charges were ever filed. Now, McElroy was hit by two different bullets. They determined one was a center fire bullet, so from a pistol or a high-powered rifle, and the other one was a .22 rifle rim shot. So basically it just hits the rim and it fires. So it's two different types of bullets that had hit him and killed him. While he lay, well, he is already dead, but nobody called an ambulance. Trina ended up filing a $5 million wrongful death suit against the town and the county. She also named the sheriff, the mayor, and Del Clement in the suit. The case was later settled for only $17,600, and still no one ever admitted guilt. I can't remember exactly when Del Clement died, but the one thing I was reading, people were all hoping that he would have a deathbed confession saying, "Yep, I did it," so then it could close. But that never happened. Eventually, Trina remarried and moved to Lebanon, Missouri. She died on January 24th, 2012, on her 55th birthday. I keep referring to this documentary that I watched. It's from the Sundance TV, and it's on Prime right now. It's called No One Saw a Thing. It interviews people that were involved, and they pair it with like vintage interviews and people that are currently still alive interviews. And it's really a neat little documentary if you have a chance to watch it. Go check it out. A couple of the people in it openly admit that they know who killed him, but won't say who. They said that they'll take it to their grave, because according to some of these townspeople, he deserved to die. He bullied that town. And back then, the town had like 400 or 500 people in it back in the early 80s. It's dwindled down to 200 people. What's interesting is the story that I did previously about the woman that had the baby cut out of her belly and kidnapped happened. She lived in Skidmore. There are other weird things that has happened in Skidmore. Whether it was a guy that murdered or supposedly murdered his girlfriend, another kid that went missing, another kid that unalived himself mysteriously. And I found out, like, right when I got done typing this all out, I'm like, I wonder where Skidmore, Missouri is. It's like 2 hours away from here. I could have driven there and did all this sitting in the tavern. Well, the tavern's closed now. Pretty much everything's closed. But I could have been sitting on Main Street and doing this. Maybe I could have had an interview with a person or two. I don't know why I don't think ahead. That would have been really interesting. But anyhow, this all being said, the bad thing is that even today, there are bullies that use intimidation to get their ways. It's sad that people have to be this way. Did he deserve what he got? Were the townspeople right to know nothing about the shooting? I don't know. I don't want to say yes, he deserved what he got, even though I think that, he was a terrible person. I don't want to wish death upon people, because that's an awful thing to do. I was bullied in the past, and I've always wanted them to get their comeuppance. But I grew up and I stopped caring about them because I'm here where I'm at now, and God knows where they're at. It doesn't really matter. But the kind of bullying that McElroy did was awful. Killing people's dogs, shooting or burning down their houses, threatening them with guns all the time. He was a terrible person, and he probably, even with his appeal, he probably would have gotten out of it. He would have found somebody to testify that he didn't actually do that to Bo. I don't know. Don't be a bully. That's the moral of the story. Don't be a bully. Thank you for watching. If you're not subscribed, please do so. Be good to yourself. Be good to others. Love you all. I'll see you next time. Bye.